Thank you everybody for attending our webinar today. I hope everybody is keeping safe and out of harm's way. We certainly are, working from home, but working to keep support all our customers. So what we're going to talk about today is something that we've been working really hard on for the last 9 months or so, and it's called the B2B Customer Portal. And really, it's really designed for business customers that you have a relationship with, whether they have terms or they pay credit cards, is already an established relationship with the customer, which is a little bit different than what you would see in the e-commerce, the regular business to consumer e-commerce websites, where you may or may not have an established relationship with the customer. This is, you already have the customer established a relationship and they know you, and you're going to grant them access to this portal, as opposed to, signing up and buying one of your products like a regular consumer. So we're going to, all of this setup, which I showed you right here. So this is actually the primary page, which is the products page. And then we got the accounts, where, depending on your preferences, you can let them pay, edit the shipping address, edit their payment address, things like that. Okay? And visibility into orders that basically they can look at, and they can look at, basically an order that you have. Or they have under their accounts, and they can also look at the invoices, which are really ship docs. Okay, so using this, it's almost like a kind of a self-service. They'll be able to place an order. They'll be able to look at their order history. They'll be able to pay. And that's basically what it is. So without further ado, I'm just going to quickly say, let's say they want this hard drive. I'll go ahead and add that to the cart, so I can add multiple at the same time. All right, and so here's our cart. I'm going to check out. I'm going to pick one of their shipping addresses. I'm going to pick the UPS link, and so now we're going to finalize the order. This customer is paying by credit card. I put it in, and voila, we have the order. Now, of course, from here, they could print their order template, and I'll show you that all these all these templates, etc., are generated from what you've already created in Order Time. And so you'll recognize this is just a template. And this customer that I'm actually working on is called Nelson Brothers. So I would expect to see an order time a sales order for $11.75. So we'll go ahead and look for that order right now on our sales order list, and there it is. All right. So basically now we can go ahead and do the ship docs and all that good stuff, and they can see the status of the orders would be closed or things like that. Okay, so that's kind of a very quick kind of summary as to what this is all about. And I'll answer your questions a little bit later on. I know you'll have a lot of questions, so we'll get to the questions. Mind you, this is V1, all right? So it's kind of the first version that has come out. There's going to be a lot of updates, I'm sure, to this. Maybe even some of you might want some customizations. Okay, so like Michael said, we created an Order Time B2B Portal guide, and you can go one by one through these yourself, but I'm going to kind of outline the salient points. So the first thing, you go to your admin. The master admin can go ahead and add a portal. The portal name has to be unique. Oh, that didn't work. has to be unique, and so there is kind of the name of the portal. Now, as you know, that we also implemented the ability to have multiple logos for your company. So really you can have multiple B2B portals, each having its own marketing, its own color. You know, so let's say I'll change that to green, and then these are some links that we created, you know, for your privacy and your copyright notice. And then we have the products, all right? So here are my up to five featured products that you would see kind of when you log out, you would see those 5 featured products right here. Now, there's a good article on how to the best practices to format your images so they become visible nicely on the portal, and you can go through that in terms of image resizing guidelines that we're working on as well. Now over here, so I'll just log back on just to kind of show you what controls that. We have a default format. We can pick by tile or table. The quantity, as you can see here, these are spinners, but you can also type it in, or you can select, you know, a text box. You can see here that I'm using categories, and I'm going to talk about using categories. If you don't use categories, you just see these filters here, and you can select which filters. But categories is a really nice tool to have, because you can kind of do hierarchical groupings, and categories can be used to restrict customers to certain categories, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So let's say you have, you know, a catalog and you want your customers just to see certain categories. This is the way to do that, and I'll show you how to do that, of course. And then, you know, if, for example, in your portal you want to just show certain locations, you can do that as well, not the entire. So this is specific. If I uncheck this, it'll show the entire availability of all the locations. And then this over here, what we see here is what inventory do you want? Net available is available minus sales order. Pro forma available is available minus on sales order plus on order. Okay, and then you have 2 other things here. You also have the ability to show when products are either in terms of whether they're out of stock. Now, I don't have that checked. Okay, so I'm actually making sure that what I see in here has availability, except for that. Okay, that one is probably a non-inventory item if it has a 0 quantity, or a kit. Actually, it's a kit. So a kit, you can obviously do that with a kit, because a kit never has quantities. All right, so and then over here, these are the columns that I want to show. All right, so all the columns, and you probably are used to this using Order Time directly. You kind of decide which columns, and if you've used the list, it's almost identical to what filters. So in here I have the filters, a group, all right, only the as sold group, and the pricing filter. So that's what I see here, the pricing filter and the group filter. Okay, that's why I have that. And then the sort, I have it sorting by prices, which I see over here. So that's the way we kind of configure this, and you can tell that we have different different views. One is the tile, and one is the table view. Okay. Now getting to the account section. The account section is basically, here is what you, in terms of your other lists. So under accounts, there are 2 other lists. One of them is the orders list, and one of them is the invoices list, aka ship docs list. Okay, they don't, basically the ship doc and the invoice are the same number, so they can view that. So this is where you would set up the columns that you want them to see. This is where you would set up the columns. Now, you'll also notice over here is that this this over here, this view of the invoice is actually one of our templates. All right, so you know how to generate form templates in Order Time. You know, you come into here, and you know, the invoice template is right here. All right, so it's kind of similar, except that we render it in a different way, different style, but it's exactly the same information. Exactly the same information. So that's why I picked, you know, the invoice template, and for my sales order template, I have this called the sales order template. So this is what they see when we email something to them. Okay, so when we email a template, we're going to send them this form template, and we're going to send them this email template. Okay, and of course you also know how to generate and modify your email template. So everything that you're doing, we're reusing everything that you're doing in Order Time already. All the tools, the email templates, the form templates, the lists, to your images, to populate and make this feature rich. Okay. All right. So that is kind of that. So this is where you would allow editing of the address, payment methods. Now here, if you just want your customers to view only, you don't want them to create sales orders, you would uncheck this little box here. Okay. And this is something that we're working on. If you want, after the sales order is created, to immediately create linked POs, we can do that too, and actually send the POs to the vendor. Okay. So that can be, that can happen. Now over here is where I can limit, you know, the shipping methods that are used in the portal. Okay. And I know you're going to ask about how about if you don't know the shipping costs? We'll get to that. All right. Now, if I've made configuration changes, I want to refresh my portal. All right. So I want to refresh my portal so all those changes take into effect. All right. Refreshing the portal does not. So you can see now it's green instead of blue. All right. Well, that was one of the changes we made. All right. Moving right along. So that's kind of briefly, again, we spent a lot of time going through exactly each section, so you can go ahead and look at that. We're going to talk about categories, item categories, and so we mentioned that we can have categories. So once you make a portal, you'll be able to, you'll see in the profile list a new entry called categories. All right. So I've already created a few categories, and as you can see, the categories are hierarchical. All right. So now I can also import all the categories, and so when you import the categories, you want to first import the top level, and then kind of the children one by one. All right, so that's kind of the trick. You want to do the top level, then the children, and if you have multiple children like this one, you'll want to do that. Okay. You can make it inactive if you make a parent inactive, they all become inactive. Okay, they all become inactive. So you just kind of make a new category over here, and we'll call these ants. We'll put them under animals. All right, so that's the way I create a category. Okay. Alrighty. Now, to apply categories to an item and to a customer, we first have to go to our page layouts and find the editor for item. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and find the editor for item and go to widgets. All right, and you'll see you can drag, and I've dragged it just in general right here. Right. So I've now dragged that into the items. Okay, and the same thing if you want to do with the customers, the same idea. You come into your page layouts, and you find the editor for your customer editor. All right, and there's the way that I put that in defaults over here. Doesn't matter where you put it. It's just a drop down. Now, if you're going to filter your customers, I'll just show you. I'll go to my customer list. Forgot the name of the customer. All right. So this customer, I've already entered some information. So as you can see here, when you apply categories to customers, you can only use the top level. Okay, you can only use the top level. However, if you're applying items, right, and you can do more than one too. So I can do more than one over here, as many as I want. Right, so that I'll save that. And the same thing with the customer. I can do it to multiple categories. Right? So multiple categories. So I can do that. I can do that. All right. That's the way I get rid of it. So remember, that's only the customer is only the top level, and the item can be in any level at all. Okay. All right. So that basically, remember, if you wanted to use categories, you would want to fill in the categories as well. Now, how do you give people access to the portal? It's all based on the contacts, customer contacts. Okay. The reason we didn't do it based on the customer itself is that you may have a situation where you have one customer with 100 contacts. You want them specifically to grant, okay, to specific users only, and of course the email has to be unique. So I'll just go that one here, and I've added a column here to my contacts where you see portal access. Here I've granted these three. So this is the one that I log in through now. So if I wanted to grant portal access, I would go invite to portal, and I can also revoke that as well. Okay, so you're going to create the contacts under your customers, and those are the ones that are going to have access to the portal. Okay. Now, you can see here that I've taken a payment on the portal. Now, in order to do that, if any of you have already set up for requests for payment, you're already set. You don't need to do anything else. In order to make this, you have to add a gateway, right? And at least one gateway. So this is my default gateway, and we have to have at least one default gateway filled in with a default payment method as well. So in order to enable payment by credit card, you have to be able to have a gateway set up. Okay. Now, there are going to be some customers that are not going to see that credit card payment, and that depends on the profile list of terms. So you might recall that each customer, by default, it's always going to be accounts receivable. So if you don't have a term specified for the customer, instead of showing the credit card payment, it's going to show, enter your PO number. In fact, if you have this anything other than full payment on order or partial payment on order, or any of these things, or actually anything other than accounts receivable, you're going to see these, a credit card come up. All right. So if they have terms, if they pay accounts receivable, they won't see the credit card. They'll see, a box so they can enter their PO number. And if you want to force them to enter a unique PO number, you go into company preferences under sales, and you go customer number, PO number must be unique. Okay, that'll force them to enter a PO number, and not only will force them to enter a PO number, but that PO number must be unique. Okay. So that's the way. So all the tools, so we leverage all the tools that you have in here. Now, let's go ahead to this hard drive over here. Go to my items list. I have one image. I'm going to add another image. Now, again, this image is quite nice, although I probably would have left a little bit more white space on the top, which probably would be a lot better for those images. So I'm just going to add, one more image here. And this is not the best image. All right. All right, so we're going to go over to our hard drive, and when you have that, you can see multiple images, right? So you can click on that like that, and there is the thing. Now notice it's only read only. Notice it's only read only now because I made it read only. So they can't even add. They can just look at the products and stuff like that. So now you can see here that we also have like things that are frequently bought together, right? In order to do that, I go to my my related items, and then here I would add a related item, okay? And the related item I want is not the replacement but upsell. Okay? So now I have a related item, okay, and then I can do that as well. Let me just go back to my my portal preferences here. Okay, now if you have this, we have a function that you can add all to cart, like so. All right, that's pretty handy. So now we're also making use of those related items. Well, other than the image sizing guidelines that we're still working on, that basically is a very quick run through the portal. I think it's pretty easy to set up, and it's pretty easy to configure once you kind of get going with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to accept some of your question and go from there. So the first question was how in the shipping method do we know how to charge for shipping? Right now, we plan to integrate our shipping estimator into it so they can actually get real-time shipping estimates, which we can already do on a sales order. So something like this, the shipping estimator. We'll be able to use that. But in the meantime, what you can do is you can go to your profile lists and go to shipping method, and the shipping method has a price. So you can actually put in a price here, and that's how much would be charged. The search feature. So the question was, is there a search? There's a kind of a global search right here where you can search any product. Now this search searches on 4 or 5 things. It searches on the customer part number, the manufacturer's part number, the UPC, the description, and the item. Okay, so that's a global search. I can click on that, and it'll get me to to my product page for that. Now, in terms of filtering, if I click on this, it'll click on everything. All right, so there are those. If I want to clear the search, just like so, and then I can click on that one, and that will only find those two. We have a question that says, will that PO checkbox force a PO number to be required when we manually? Yes. Yes. The PO will, that drives both the order time, that preference is also order time preference. So that PO checkbox will require also for manual entry. Right now, okay, so Kelly S. asked, will orders sent in a separate from portal manually enter show up in their? Yes. If I enter any order that I enter, any order will show up in their portal, whether they enter it manually or they enter it through the portal itself. All right, so yeah, you know what the order source is. So the order source, all these are AO demo, but I have fax and email as well. So they'll see both of those in their account. In terms of selling in multiple units of measure, right now it's strictly by the sold as unit of measure. We're going to be looking at potentially offering different units of measure, but that's a little bit more advanced, a little trickier. So we wanted to get this done before that, before we could. But right now, it's in the default sold as unit of measure. If you use UOM sets, you'll know that it's the pricing is always converted and the quantities are always converted to the sold as unit of measure. Okay. The price levels, by the way, are custom. So if you have price levels, they only see their prices. Okay, they only see their prices. All right. So that's Suma's question. Can it support B2C customers? I mean, you have to enter them as a customer in order time first, and then they would have a contact, and you can enable them. It's not really designed for that, but it's possible. Okay. All right. Next question, Jonathan asks. Thank you, Jonathan, and I hope you're keeping healthy too. We currently sell direct to smaller businesses. Not worth getting. Okay. Yes, I mean basically, a lot of people use a lot of. The question was, we have a regular business to consumer-based website, either using WooCommerce or that people kind of kludge to sell to their business companies. This would replace that. I mean, essentially, this is an e-commerce platform. It just happens that the whole management of the e-commerce platform. Well, there's two critical points: is that it's strictly for business, so it's really you would have already established relationships with your customers, and will we allow them to, in the future, maybe add themselves as a customer? Maybe we might be able to do that. I'm sorry, Julie. I'm going to mute you here. And certainly that could definitely be. Now, what people can do is you can take this order time, this URL. If you already have a website, kind of an informational website, you can create a little button on your informational website that links to here. Like customer login, that type of thing. And number two, right. So one of the questions that I kind of got to that a little bit was the UPS, the shipping estimator, and that is something that is a high priority to integrate with this. Where if you have the shipping estimator already in order time, so we're already doing it, we'll be able to offer that ability to as well into this B2B portal. So yes, Jonathan, that will be something that we will be working on in terms of rate shopping that your customers can do. The question was, we have a question from Steve here on how to once your customer sends you the email, you're going to get something like this, right? And you just click on that, set your email, right? And that's it. Okay. So that's what you're going to get. Now, anytime you can go forgot password, and if one of your users forgot password, or one of your customers, what's my password, reset my password, you just go forgot password and they can reset their own password. The question from Kelly S. Are we able to set it so customers can see the MSRP as well as the customer price? Yes. So as you know, you can create, well, you would have to create a custom field for MSRP. You would have to create a custom field on the item level, and as you can see here in my portal, I can select any one of my custom fields to display along. This is always going to be the regular price. It's a good point. I should think about that. MSRP as a field, which is just the regular price or the standard price, maybe the standard price. Okay, that's something we can consider that. All right, so let me continue on here. So says someone would it be possible, and this is an extension of Jonathan's question, would it be possible to use the B2B portal and allow anyone to use it as an ordering platform website without needing the person to be granted access first to in order time? So the answer to your question is not yet, but it sounds like it's something that everybody is going to want. So what we can do here is, something like, register. And when they register, they can possibly kind of register as a, as a lead, maybe. And then you would have, you can kind of give them, or maybe register as a customer and make them by default. So kind of enter an ability to create their own customer, their own account, essentially, and let them log in. So it sounds like there are two things that I'm getting out of this. One is the shipping method, and one is the ability for anybody to be able to log in here to create their own customer account, create their own given access, and start ordering. I think those are the two kind of points that I'm getting from these questions, the shipping estimator and the ability for anybody to log in. Right now, that has to have an established customer already in order time, have a customer. Can we create a customer on the fly with a contact and give them access? Absolutely. That's something that we can do, and I will add it to our list. Well, that was the last question. One more question from Jonathan. Do orders feed into a work order management tool of sorts on the user side? Do the orders feed into a work order? Well, I mean, basically the sales orders that are generated are just like any other sales order. Then you would create the linked, you know, your linked work order, which is your workflow. At that point, the order would come in. You can create a status or an alert that an order is coming in, and you can then go ahead and go and do your linked work order. Okay, no problem, my pleasure. All right, are there any other questions? This is very good and productive meeting here. I'm happy that we got a really good turnout, and I'm really excited about B2B. I think it's kind of a game changer for us, that more of our own e-commerce platform that we're going to be working really hard to improve it. We already have a couple of great requests. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more great requests coming from you folks. And as ever, if you want to send us the requests at support@ordertime.com, and we'd love to take a look at what you want. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So if anybody has any other questions, certainly you can reach out to us at support@ordertime.com. And everybody have a very safe and healthy holiday weekend.